Hello, everyone. It is nighttime for me, and I finally got a lot of the chores done. And I figured since last time with the light shining through the windows that I would wait until dark anyway and get this video started. Um, just wanted to introduce a couple of pieces around me. This is the bowl set my mom gave me, and the candelabras also. And this is a 42-year-old vase that my friend gave me a couple of years ago. And I kept that with me all through the troubles. And then this is my favorite. And I bought it at the same antique store I bought this chair and the sister chair that goes with it back before I became as ill as I did. I got these pieces and I kept them in storage by the grace of God. I don't know how I paid that bill, but I finally just got rid of that storage. I got everything out that I needed, but this piece, when I came upon it, I didn't even know what it was. I just kind of looked at it, and it reminded me of those old things in the library, where it had the index cards in it. You could look up by author or title or subject, the books that you wanted to look at. And I opened up one of the drawers and it didn't have like the bars in it, for the index cards. And then I kind of just looked around real quick and I took off my shoe and I put my shoe in there to see if it fit, and it did. And so I bought the piece and I brought it home with me, and I was able to put all of my shoes in it, and the boxes are kind of like different size. Some are bigger or littler, and you can like display your high heels or boots, if you want to. But it's an awesome piece, and I just had to have it. But when I got sick, there were people in my life that I thought should have been there for me, that weren't, and people that were there for me that I didn't expect. And when it comes to the souls that come to help you in your time of trouble, those are blessings from God too. And since we were talking last time about, how to handle your enemies, especially first in you, I thought I would kind of delve into kind of that same tone and cut a little bit deeper when it comes to betrayal by the ones that you trust and love, the ones that are closest to you in your life, because when it happens to you and it's a stranger, that's one thing, but it is harder when somebody that you love stabs you in the back and does a really good job twisting the knife. Believe me, that's why I'm here. And the Bible, it's a pretty awesome book, because from the beginning it begins to reveal to us the ways that humans can kind of go at times, and that the mistakes that we make are nothing new, and that's why they tell the stories the way they do, so that we can learn. We don't have to be hard-headed and stubborn. We can learn, all right? And right now, I do believe we're in the end times. I clearly do, and everybody was like, okay, you need to get your garments clean. Well, I'm saying that same thing. And the most important thing is to really start etching away at, the bitterness and resentment, and to realize that time is short, okay? So we really are about to leave all this behind one way or another, and we just don't have time to be upset, to let a situation go too far, and that's just why I'm kind of coming to you and saying, okay, what do you do if you're betrayed by a loved one? Well, it happened to Caesar by Brutus, so I can't say that it won't happen, because it will, But the story of Joseph really hit me pretty hard, and it's in Genesis 37, and I'm not gonna read the entire story. I'll read some pieces of the story, but this is just one of the Bible's ways of letting you know that you're not alone, okay? And Joseph's story was really the most beautiful. So anyway, it begins in Genesis 37, and Joseph was one of the sons of Jacob. Okay, Joseph being the one of the 12 tribes of Judah, one of the 12 sons of Jacob, right? So he was the youngest, but he was at the time, and he was obviously the most beloved because his father gave him a coat of many colors. And back in the day, um, to have that kind of color, have that many colors, that was a big deal. And so his brothers were already very, very jealous of him just because they knew that he was Jacob's favorite son. And then, of all things, the poor thing, he has all of these older guys against him, right? And God gives him a dream, and he goes and he tells his brothers, about his dreams, and they knew what it meant. They were like, what, you think we're going to bow down to you? Which, the Bible says in Genesis 37 that it didn't help with the situation at all. It made them hate him even more. And I can see the desperation that Joseph probably had. He was only 17 at the time. He was a young boy. And, there's just so much that goes into the story. And I think that the reason that God gave Joseph the dream when he did was because he knew the hearts of the other sons. And he knew what they were going to plot to do very, very soon. And considering all of the things that were going to come out of that bloodline, we can see why God was looking for the heart of the one that had the truest heart. And when that happens, that heart is going to be put to the fire, to the test, okay? And so one day the brothers decide they got to go to market, and Jacob decides that, Joseph should go meet his brothers. Well, when they saw him coming, they just came up with this plan. Let's slay our brother, and then we'll see what happens to that dream. And a little bit further down, it says, well, let's just throw him in this well, because they were starting to say, well, I don't know if, we should slay him. He's our brother, and they see this merchant just happening by at that very moment. They're like, oh, I know how we can clear our conscience. Let's sell him to this guy into slavery. So off Joseph goes. And what ended up happening was he ended up becoming the Pharaoh of Egypt's most trusted man. And even when the Pharaoh's wife accused Joseph of trying to mock the queen or trying anything with her. He put him in prison, and the prison guard put him in charge of the whole prison. He didn't have to worry about what was going on because he knew Joseph was there, and he knew that Joseph was with him, and that God had made it so that the head of that prison would favor him, just like he had made it that the Pharaoh's heart would be hardened. He made it so that the prison warden had favor with Joseph, and it turned out that Joseph had dreams. Okay, and so just with that prison ward thing, the favor that, and when you are in a time of trouble and someone is there to help you or comes along and finds favor upon you, that is actually God there with you. Okay, so always appreciate that. All right, and so when it came finally to a point where two men were in the jail, and one was going to be set free and one was going to be restored to his position, and they had dreams to that, but they didn't know what it meant until Joseph deciphered the dreams, right? Well, when it came time 2 years later, after one of them had been restored to his position, the Pharaoh had a dream, and nobody could help him with that situation. So that's when the butler remembered his promise and mentioned Joseph. Well, Joseph answered the question, said we're going to have 7 years of feast, and then we have to store up that whole 7 years, and then we're going to have 7 years of terrible, terrible famine. Well, that's exactly what happened. Lo and behold, one day, his brothers that sold him into slavery decide to show up to purchase some food. Well, they didn't even recognize Joseph. And then they started to say, hey, we need some food, and you can see when you read scripture that Joseph was fighting back a lot of emotions. He even had to leave for a second, cry in private and come back composed. And he found out in the process that, he had a little brother. So when he had the brother brought to him, say hi to Sebastian. Yeah, we renamed him Sebastian. Prince Lemon is his, actor name. That's his, we can call him that, when the media's, coming for him. Oh boy. His name is Sebastian. Well, anyway, he says hi. So, when he had everybody to dinner, all his brothers, even the youngest one, he showered the youngest one, Benjamin, more than the others, just to see how the brothers would act. And then he tried to make it so that Benjamin would have to stay by staging that they had robbed. He wanted to see what would happen if he tried to take the youngest son, like he had been the youngest son and given away. I think he was a little bit jealous too. And the brothers all just threw themselves at him. They were just begging for his mercy and saying, this will kill our father, that we already lost a younger brother before, and if we don't come back with this one, it'll kill him. Well, I know if Joseph, and it looks like he was, struggling with what to do, that he wouldn't have tried to keep Benjamin. He wouldn't have showered him with extra food. He wouldn't have, gone through the process of what he had if he wasn't still angry. But, there was another part of him that really wanted things to be different. And when they mentioned his father, Jacob, that's it. He broke, and he ordered everybody out, and he revealed himself finally to his brothers and was able to bring his brothers and their wives and their kids and his dad and live happily, after that. And I think that had he not seen that the brothers had changed and that, things had not gone so well, since he had been gone, and that his brother, his father, missed him very, very much. I think things might have gone differently. I really do. But they didn't. They went a lot better. And he was betrayed by his own brothers. And later, he saved his whole family's life. And so that tells you that before his brothers, and I mean right before his brothers sold him into slavery, he had that dream. Before the brothers' hate could manifest into that situation, Joseph had a dream. And it just so happened that instead of Joseph being slayed like the brothers thought, to see what could happen of that vision, that a caravan comes by right at that moment going to Egypt where the Pharaoh is. And then in the end, you have to realize that it was all God's plan, all from the beginning. And there's this sweet little song in there. Let's see here. For you know better than I. At some point he says, I'll take what answers you supply. And not everybody, really adheres to that. And I left the link down below in the box for the actual song, the actual singer. It sounds like it's so much better. But you can see why Joseph was chosen over the other brothers, because the brothers were proud and they were also jealous and what it looks like also really mean, vindictive, So another person, Job, he was one of God's favorites also, and it's in the book of Job, chapter 46, where they talk about him and how the devil persuaded God to test Job. So he took away the protective hedge around Job, and the house fell in, the roof fell in at dinner time, and killed his wife and all 10 of his children. And he was so upset. He's like, God, what have I done to you? What have I done? And he was inconsolable for quite a while. And in the end, he had to forgive God and trust God. That was hard. And so sometimes that's someone close to you, some people out there might be going, God, why did you do this to me? But as soon as Job decided that he was going to get up, dust off, and get right, faith again, and try to go forward, that in the end he ended up with another wife and I think 10 more children and probably a better roof, because we didn't hear of that happening anymore. And then one of my favorite stories is Abraham. And he was the father of Isaac, who was the father of Jacob, who was the father of the 12 tribes of Judah, which one of the brothers being Joseph, we just talked about. Now, Abraham was tested by God, and he told Abraham, you need to go slay Isaac. Now, again, Isaac would father Jacob and the 12 tribes of Judah, who would end up fathering Jesus, okay? For whatever reason that was unapparent to a lot of people, he told Abraham to go slay Isaac. And Isaac and Abraham were obedient. He went to slay his son. He's very distraught. Why not? I mean, of course. And boy, he loved that. He loved that child. He loved that child. But he loved God. And just as he went to slay that boy, the angel told him to stop. It was just a test. And I think what the lesson is what failed to be here. When I was a little kid, that's pretty much what they said, that it was a test. But I didn't understand the test. It sounded kind of mean if you really want to know the truth. But that's really awesome. One day he laid it on me. And see, Jesus was going to come out of that line down the road. And it was also that line that was going to crucify him. Some of those people were there that day, like my family. And I realized that God was was trying to figure out, because he was grieving that he was about to send his son in a few generations, and it grieved God. So he went to the one guy in the whole wide world that he could trust with this test. And if this guy couldn't pass it, then no one could, and especially with this line. You know, should we be cursed until the end of days, or should we be wiped off the planet? I mean, that's what I believe he was really thinking. And if Abraham could have any conceivable idea of what it was like to have to give up his son, which was what God was fixing to have to do. He wanted to know what Abraham would do if he had to give up his son. And Abraham was obedient. He didn't really want him to kill Isaac. He didn't, because he needed Isaac in that line in the future. The question was, what was he going to do when his son was crucified? Abraham is probably that moment is so understated usually in the church. And I think that as a mom that had a son, I lost him when he was 19 months old. The pain of losing a child is so intense. And that's what God gave up for us. And we have to learn to trust him no matter what. And to remember that if people like Joseph and Job and Abraham went through things like that, being betrayed by people closest to them, or, well, God didn't betray Job, he tested him, but I'm just saying that Job still had to forgive and to reassure his faith, and he had to be ministered unto. He was not happy. He was very upset, but I'm saying there are just things that happen in our lives, things that have happened in our past by people. Don't sit here and act like you haven't been betrayed by your cousin or your sister, your brother, your uncle. Somebody has done something that has betrayed your trust, something that you might have forgiven, but there's going to be more in our future, because it talks about it in Matthew 10:21, Luke 21:16, Mark 13:12, and Luke 12:53. It talks about our time, our future, something that's coming upon us. And that's why I'm talking about it. I mean, maybe you're forgiving people in your future, but more shocking times like that are coming, all right? Because when economics start getting harder and the famine starts really growing and spreading, when it gets to the point where the Christian persecution is getting so fierce that they'll turn you in like a Jew from the Nazi war, when they were hunting people like us back then. But it's not going to be just the Jews. It's going to be everybody that does not believe in worshiping this one icon that rises up, okay? And in that time, it talks about how In-laws will be given up. Brothers, parents will give their kids up. It's going to be neighbors giving each other up. Everybody's going to be pointing the fingers. Da, 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 you know? And it's not, I tell you this because I don't want it to be something that's going to shock you, okay? This Bible, it tells you these stories. They may be old, but like I said, the Spirit remains, all right? And that's why I want you to think about all the people in your life that are closest to you. My grandpa, he told me, he said, Christina, the amount of friends you really have, you can count them on a hand or less. Because when things get hard, you see what really happens, all right? You'll see who's really there for you when things get hard. And he was right, all right? So what you're going to have to do is understand that whatever comes up in your life, that God does have a plan for you. And sometimes you are being tested, okay? I'll tell you the truth. When I got my sickest, when I was on my deathbed, and I saw God and I saw Jesus and I was shown hell, I was not just given a second chance, but I was sent to do this work. I was sent to tell people, not just the fact that I saw hell, but why the people were there, and I'm not talking about murders. He didn't show me murderers and rapists. While I'm sure that they are all there, he wanted me to concentrate on people that were just everyday people that, really had no idea that the grudges and the anger and the bitterness and the resentment and the revenge, how much it really cost us in the end. You've got to be ready to let it go as soon as it happens. You've got to be able to settle it now, okay? Because God dealt with Joseph's brothers, He has his way of dealing with things. And what you have to realize is that his thoughts are not our thoughts. They're higher. He does things in his own times, but he doesn't, okay? And he does it according to his will and according to the righteousness that is in him. He's going to do it right. And you can trust him with that, all right? So, just expect that things are going to occur like that. You're going to feel like you've been stabbed in the back, like Caesar by Brutus at times. And when you're not prepared, when you're thinking that could never happen, then it hurts a lot more. Don't let it catch you by surprise. All right, we're in a time where all this anger, that same anger that's built up in you is the same anger that's built up in everybody else, and all that accumulated negativity is just choking the life out of everybody's soul, So just don't let that plague of anger and bitterness just suck you in. Don't do that. Be ready, okay? Be ready to just let that anger drop before it even gets to you, okay? And in the meantime, search your heart. In the meantime, pray, read your Bibles, and do your best to take what little time, the few days, months, or years that we might have, and I believe they're few, to get as close as you can. And believe me, any form of hate like jealousy, pride, resentment, that's a form of hate that separates you from God. So be sure to address those things. Don't be like Joseph's older brothers, jealous because of what he had, Settle it in your heart, settle it in your souls, to understand that God is the one who has the answers, and you just need to leave him to it and trust in him. Because if You think about what happened with Joseph and Abraham and Job, everything went really wrong. Okay? These were his most beloved. And you are precious also. So if he can see them through, believe me, in a time of great evil, we are also going to see a time of great miracles. And if you can open up your heart and let God in and let him teach you his ways through the Holy Spirit, then you're going to be a part of that miracle. You're not only going to see it, you're going to live it. You're going to be that miracle. And there will be no hiding light then. Because I'm telling you, troops might be surrounded you and you'll be praying so hard they cannot see you. They'll walk right through you. Those kind of miracles. People able to heal, just wow. It's going to happen. So just open your heart up for that gift. All right. God bless y'all. Take it easy. I have created a prayer group where you can leave your prayer requests, and I'll be taking prayer warriors so that we can have our own gathering place to pray for each other and to be prayed for. As always, feel free to comment, share, like, and subscribe. All you have to do is push the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell on the edge there. You'll see it, and that way you'll get notified whenever I get a new video out.